Hello, third graders. It's Parker and me again, and we are going to read a book together. We've got our two puppies with us today. We've got Miles here and Chi-Chi here. They're both wearing their pajamas still for the day. The book we're going to read is called The Boy Who Lived with Dinosaurs. And the reason this book is pretty cool is because it was actually written by none other than Parker Harrion. The illustrations were done by his big sister Hannah Harrion, but Parker basically came up with the whole idea and the whole plot for this story. All right, so we're going to take turns. Parker and I will read a page at a time, going back and forth. Everyone knows that dinosaurs lived millions of years ago, but did you know that there was a boy who lived with them? His name was Parker. Parker was by the river collecting water to take back to his cave. All of a sudden, he felt the ground shake. He quickly looked around but didn't see anything. But then he felt the ground shake again and again. Boom, boom, boom. Parker's eyes darted back and forth. He knew something was coming but didn't know what.
All of a sudden, a huge Tyrannosaurus Rex pushed through the trees. All Parker could focus on were those huge, sharp teeth. For a second, Parker didn't move a muscle, hoping the T-Rex didn't see him. But then the T-Rex let out a loud roar. Now Parker knew the T-Rex saw him, so he began running. He could hear the T-Rex following him. He could feel the thump of every T-Rex step, and Parker could feel the thump of his own heart beating.
Parker knew he had to get back to his cave. As he was sprinting, he dropped his bucket so he could run blazing fast. He was weaving between trees and bushes. He was hurdling huge rocks and broken tree limbs. He could hear and feel every enormous step the T-Rex took. But Parker didn't dare look back for fear he would trip and fall. Suddenly, Parker made a wrong move and crumpled to the jungle floor. Now he looked back and saw the huge T-Rex open its jaws and move in for the attack. Parker quickly crawled behind a tree, barely escaping the T-Rex's chomp.
Knowing that the T-Rex has poor vision, Parker circled around and hid on the backside of the tree. The T-Rex slowly walked around looking for Parker. The T-Rex was sniffing the ground, trying to pick up Parker's scent. Parker knew his cave was close. He waited for the T-Rex to face the other way, and then in a flash, he bolted. Parker was so scared the T-Rex would see him, but before he knew it, he made it home safely. Parker was breathing hard as he walked into his cave. He felt such relief from escaping the T-Rex, but he didn't know there was a surprise waiting for him.
Even though Parker's own breathing was loud, Parker could hear something else breathing. Parker stood in the entrance of his cave, staring into the darkness. Parker's heart started racing all over again. Not only could he hear the breathing of this thing, but he could hear a low growl as well. Parker strained his eyes, trying to look into the shadows. Was it a wolf? A saber-toothed tiger? Another dinosaur waiting to eat him? Parker slowly grabbed a torch and sparked a small fire on the tip of it. As the fire grew and produced more light, Parker now could see what his visitor was. It was a dinosaur, one Parker had seen in the jungle before. What Parker didn't know was whether he was a friend or a foe.
Parker stared at the dinosaur, and the dinosaur stared right back. Both seemed nervous and scared to move. Then the dinosaur slowly walked toward Parker. Parker was terrified. His hand was trembling. The dinosaur got so close Parker could feel his breath. The dinosaur sniffed Parker, and then, to Parker's surprise, the dinosaur gently licked him. Parker didn't move a muscle, and the dinosaur slowly walked out of the cave. Parker breathed a sigh of relief. A few minutes later, the dinosaur returned with berries and plants and dropped them in front of Parker. Was this dinosaur trying to be his friend?
Parker and the dinosaur each ate some berries and plants. The whole while, they kept a close eye on each other. They were both still trying to figure each other out. Parker thought that this dinosaur seemed nice, almost like a friend. Finally, Parker spoke up. "Hey, buddy, were you hiding in my cave to escape that T-Rex too? Is it okay if I pet you?" Parker slowly reached his hand toward the dinosaur. He gently pet the top of his head. The dinosaur seemed to like it and even purred a little in approval. As Parker pet the dinosaur, he said, "I like your spikes. I think I'll call you Spike."
Parker and Spike spent every day together. They shared Parker's cave. They looked for food and water together. They became inseparable. One day, Parker and Spike were on their way to get some water. They both knew that other dinosaurs went to the same river, even T-Rex. So as they approached the river, they both looked around nervously, making sure there was no one else around. After Parker had filled his buckets with water and Spike had drank all the water he could, they were ready to head back to the cave.
Parker jumped onto Spike's back. "All right, buddy, back to the cave." Spike took just a few steps when out of nowhere a terrifying-looking dinosaur appeared. It let out a loud roar at the sight of Spike and Parker. "We need to get out of here fast," said Parker. But Spike walked right toward the other dinosaur. Parker knew this would be bad, but Spike and the dinosaur started grunting and growling toward each other, almost like they were talking. After a few minutes, the other dinosaur went on his way, and Parker and Spike headed for the cave.
"I didn't know what you said back there, but it worked perfect," said Parker. Parker and Spike approached their cave. Then suddenly the T-Rex stomped in front of them, blocking their path. Get out of here, Spike," screamed Parker. Spike turned and started to run away from the T-Rex. The T-Rex chased Spike and Parker, catching up to them quickly. The T-Rex slammed his head into the side of Spike's body, knocking him over and sending Parker flying. With Spike down, the T-Rex bit into his body. Spike groaned in pain and swung his spiked tail into the side of the T-Rex's face. The T-Rex let out a loud roar in pain.
One of Spike's tail spikes actually stuck in the T-Rex's face. The T-Rex struggled with his short, scrawny arms, trying to remove the spike from his face. Parker used this opportunity to help Spike get to his feet and limp into the bushes. Finally, the T-Rex was able to knock the spike out of his face. He looked around and realized his prey had escaped. He let out an angry roar and stomped away. Parker led Spike into the cave. Spike was bleeding where the T-Rex had bitten him. As soon as Spike got to the cave, he collapsed from pain and exhaustion. Parker placed some leaves over Spike's wounds to help him heal. "You'll be okay, Spike," said Parker. "This T-Rex is never going to leave us alone."
"The only way for us to be safe is to get rid of that T-Rex," said Parker. Parker thought for a few minutes and then finally said, "Spike, I have an idea." Parker left the cave and after a few minutes returned with the tail spike from T-Rex's face, a tree branch, and a long piece of vine. Spike watched as Parker used the supplies to create a bow, and the tail spike became an arrow. I'm going to hunt down the T-Rex and make sure he never bothers us again, said Parker. After Parker left the cave on a mission to hunt down the T-Rex.
Parker followed the T-Rex's path. It wasn't hard to find. The T-Rex left a path of destruction wherever he went. After a few minutes, Parker could see the T-Rex's nest. Parker slowly approached. Suddenly, the T-Rex looked up and saw Parker. The T-Rex let out a loud roar and raced toward Parker. Parker pulled the bowstring back as far as he could. He took careful aim and let loose the arrow. It hit the T-Rex right in the eye. He roared in pain and shook his head, trying to get the arrow out. He eventually went back to his nest, gathered his family, and left the jungle. Parker arrived back to the cave and said to Spike, "I think we will be safe now." Spike nuzzled his face close to Parker. Parker gave him a big hug and said, "You're my best friend, Spike." The end. All right, thank you guys for listening as we read Parker's book, and hope you guys all have a good day.